Texas. The name alone conjures a very specific, globally recognized image. Cowboys, rugged independence, and massive wealth pulled straight from the earth. But that legendary frontier image acts as a shield. It actively obscures a much more brutal reality. Beneath the celebrated tales of American triumph lies a history deeply scarred by systemic violence, betrayal, and displacement. To accurately understand the formation of the United States, we have to look closely at the tragedies buried within its most famous state. These shadows include a highly distorted timeline of freedom and a sudden catastrophic event that remains the absolute deadliest in American natural history. The folklore we know today sits atop these human costs. To view the full scope of the American story, we have to look directly at what was buried to make room for the legend. Long before European arrival, the plains of Texas weren't an empty expanse waiting to be discovered. The land was home to thriving indigenous communities, including the Comanche, Apache, and Caddo nations. When Spanish explorers pushed into the region in the 15th and 1600s, centuries of cohabitation gave way to intense competition over resources. As settlers drove westward, claiming land that had been occupied for generations, indigenous cultures were forced to violently defend their ancestral territories. This colonial expansion relied on a calculated strategy. Native communities faced relentless warfare, endured forced relocations, and devastating waves of introduced diseases. The land of the open frontier was violently cleared. Every mile of expansion carried a foundational cost, paid in human lives. By 1835, tensions between expanding settlements and the Mexican government reached a breaking point, sparking the Texas Revolution. The conflict produced the Battle of the Alamo, where a small group of defenders held out against a massive opposing army. It is a moment immortalized as a symbol of courage. Yet the immediate focus on that heroism often erases the severe psychological and physical toll the war inflicted on the region. The fighting shattered local communities, divided families along political lines, and established a culture of violence that persisted long after the treaties were signed. Texas secured its independence, but the victory required a chaotic fracturing of society, leaving generations to navigate the resulting trauma. With independence secured, Texas built a massive economic engine. At the center of this boom was a rapidly expanding plantation system, dependent on enslaved labor. This chart shows the exact correlation. As agricultural wealth climbed exponentially, the population of enslaved African Americans spiked right alongside it. Even when the Civil War ended in April 1865, slaveholders suppressed the news to extract more profitable labor. It took until June 19, 1865, for Union troops to arrive and officially enforce the end of slavery, establishing the historical origin of Juneteenth. While recognized across America today as a celebration, its roots expose a painful reality where freedom was deliberately and systematically denied for profit. In the decades following the war, frontier expansion continued unchecked. A lack of strict law enforcement spurred rapid population growth, pushing settlements to the vulnerable coastline. By September 1900, the city of Galveston had become an incredibly wealthy, bustling coastal hub. Its residents were entirely unaware of the danger brewing in the Gulf. Without warning, a catastrophic hurricane struck. A massive storm surge violently overtook the unprepared settlement, sweeping through the streets with terrifying speed. The sheer lack of modern weather forecasting meant the city was completely caught off guard. There was virtually no time to evacuate. The aftermath was staggering. Entire neighborhoods vanished, massive buildings collapsed, and an estimated 6,000 to 8,000 people lost their lives in hours. Over a century later, the Galveston Hurricane remains the single deadliest natural disaster in the history of the United States. The city's destruction highlighted the ultimate geographic toll of the era. It proved how vulnerable these rapidly expanding frontier towns were against the unrestrained forces of nature. The 6,000 lives lost at Galveston exposed a total failure of 1900-era forecasting. This tragedy forced a transformation in how the nation tracks storms and builds coastal defenses, creating the blueprint for modern disaster preparedness. When you pull back to view the entire Texas timeline, a highly complex picture emerges. It is a dense mixture of massive opportunity, calculated injustice, and profound tragedy. Analyzing the forced displacement of native tribes, the deliberate delays of emancipation, and the unchecked vulnerabilities of early settlements strips away the simplified folklore. The legendary brand of the Lone Star State is built upon these brutal foundational events. The myth and the reality have merged together to form the complex, modern state that we see today. Acknowledging these darker chapters does not erase the achievements of Texas. Instead, it measures the exact heavy human cost required to build a modern superpower. Which piece of Texas history surprised you the most? Let us know down in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden stories that shaped America, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.